Hello and welcome. Today is June 29th, 2026, and Q3 starts in just 2 days on July 1st, Wednesday. And I want to have a blunt, direct conversation with you about what that means, and more specifically, about what you need to do before that date arrives. Because here's the thing, most people treat the start of a new quarter the way they treat New Year's Day. There's a feeling of a fresh start, of new possibilities. And then the days start going by. And by the middle of the quarter, things look a lot like they did the previous one. I don't want that for you. I don't want that for me either. So let's talk about what it actually takes to make Q3 different. Welcome to Focus, Finish, Grow with Bill Walker, a podcast for independent creatives who want to turn scattered ideas into focused action, consistent visibility, and real creative momentum. And today, we're talking about revenue generation in Q3, July 1st to September 30th. And I want to start by asking you a question. And I want you to ponder for a minute. When Q3 ends on September 30th, what will you have to show for it? Just think about that for a few minutes. Not what you hope to have, not what you want to have, but what will you have actually done? How much revenue will you have generated? What projects will be completed and out in the world? How many clients will you have served? How many leads will you have generated? If you can answer these questions right now with a specific, clear picture in your mind and have these answers written down, then you're in great shape. And even though you're ahead of most people, keep listening. If, however, that question has made you feel a little uncomfortable, if your answer is something like, I don't know, I'm not sure, or I haven't really thought about it, then this episode is exactly what you need to hear before Wednesday. Here's what I've observed, both in my own creative work and in watching other independent creatives navigate their businesses. There are two fundamentally different ways to operate. The first one I'm going to call drifting. And drifters are often very busy. They have full calendars, active projects, and lots of motion. But that motion doesn't necessarily add up to forward progress. Each week looks different. Priorities shift. New ideas pull attention away from old commitments. Then the quarter ends way faster than they thought, and they wonder, why haven't I accomplished anything? All right, the second way is to execute. Executing is having decided in advance and in writing what your goals for the quarter are. What are you going to produce? And then doing the work to make sure that happens. Every week, every day, whether you feel inspired or not. The difference between these two modes of operating, it's not generally skill, effort, or a lack of desire. It's structure. It's the commitment to a framework. It's working intentionally. It's the willingness to hold yourself accountable to your plan, even when it gets uncomfortable, especially when it gets uncomfortable. And that's what we're talking about today. So let's talk about what execution actually means, because I think there's a version of it that gets misrepresented. Execution isn't all about grinding and working yourself to exhaustion and burnout. Execution, in the context of the Create operating system, is about taking correct action, focusing on income-producing activities that are done consistently over time. Let me say that another way. Execution is taking the right action on the right things over an extended period of time. Not all action is execution. And this is where I think a lot of creatives get stuck without realizing it. There's a version of staying busy that feels like execution, but isn't. You know what I'm talking about. The days where you feel like you've worked hard. You spent all day in front of your computer. And at the end of the day, you can't really identify what you did that moved your business forward. That's usually a sign that you are busy with everything except the few decisive actions that will actually propel your business forward. Like making an offer, asking for the sale, launching your finished project, following up with a person who could say yes, starting a conversation with someone who could become your next client. Those are execution actions. And most creatives avoid them because those actions come with risk. These are actions where someone can say no. This is where you find out whether or not your work connects. Or maybe better said, it is a way to find out if the way you are presenting your work connects. Or maybe it doesn't. Do you want to stop being someone who is just working towards something? Or do you want to become the person who is out in the world actually doing something? If you want to be out in the world doing something, there's exposure, there's risk, and that shift from protected to unprotected is uncomfortable in a way that endless planning never is and never will be. But we'll go deeper on that next week because the psychology behind it is worth an entire episode. But today, we need to stay focused because Q3 is just 2 days away. And this isn't the time for psychology. This is the time for decisions, for action. So let me ask you a question. Do you have a Q3 revenue goal? And is it written down? Not some random hope, not a range, but a specific number that you've written down. Okay, if you don't, we can deal with that. So here's how to set one before July 1st. Start with what you know. If you've been in business a while, look at what you've generated in recent quarters. What were your revenue generating actions? What converted? What didn't? Use that as your baseline. And if you're new to business ownership, and if Q3 is your first real quarter trying to build revenue, then your number should be grounded in what you're actually willing to do. How many clients do you want to serve? At what price point? What does the path to that number look like? How many leads do you need to generate? How many people need to be exposed to your work? And then reverse engineer it. Let's work backward. Don't start with the number and hope you figure out the path. Start with the path and let it validate the number. So if your goal is to earn $10,000 in Q3, how many clients does that require? How many conversations do you need to have? How many people need to discover your work? And then what actions do you need to take each week? What actions do you need to take every day? And when you know these things, that math becomes your execution plan. And having it written down before July 1st is the difference between entering the quarter with direction and entering it hoping that things fall into place. Now, let's talk about something else that's related to revenue. In fact, it's directly related to revenue. This action, this step, is one that I see most people skip. And this action is prospecting. Now, let me ask you another question. Are you actively prospecting? So what does that even mean? Well, I'm not asking you whether you're creating content, or if you have a website, or a social presence, or you're building an email list. I'm asking whether you are actively, intentionally, and consistently going out and starting conversations with people who could become customers, clients, or community members. Prospecting isn't cold outreach spam. It's not buying a list and then blasting emails. It's the disciplined daily practice of showing up in the spaces where your ideal customers and clients spend time, offering genuine value and making it easy for them to learn more about what you do. And one way to do that is to engage in relevant communities. Not just posting and leaving, but actually engaging, building real relationships. Another way to engage is reaching out one-to-one with people whose work you genuinely admire. Find common ground with them, contact them, start a conversation. You can also directly invite people to your webinar or to purchase your products. And you're doing this because you believe that what you have can genuinely benefit them. So whatever form your prospecting takes, the key word is daily. Not when you feel like it, not when you have a new offer to promote, daily. This is the part of amplifying that many creative entrepreneurs resist the most. And I'm included in that statement. Just ask my marketing partner, Greg. However, no longer. For many years, I resisted almost all amplifying, except for simple posts and occasional house concerts. So I get it. It's hard. You have to leave your comfort zone. Because as creatives, we create because something inside tells us to. We love creating just because of the love of the work itself. The music, the writing, the art, the ideas, the helping people. But the business development side feels like a different language. It feels uncomfortable. It feels like interrupting people. It feels like begging. But it's also fear of rejection, fear of failure, and for some, fear of success. Now, as I mentioned, I've seen the errors of my way. I need to prospect. You need to prospect. I have committed to prospecting daily and growing my business. Will you commit to doing the same? And at the end of today's episode, I will be giving you a list of 5 things that I would encourage you to commit to completing in the month of July and in Q3 as a whole. Right now, I'm urging you to commit to do whatever it takes to liberate your business from obscurity. And here's an easy way to begin. Reframe what marketing and prospecting mean. Your work doesn't just randomly reach the people who need it unless you go find them. The most brilliant, transformative, and meaningful creative work in the world has zero impact sitting on a bookshelf or in some random folder on your computer hard drive. Prospecting isn't a distraction from the creative work. It's the delivery mechanism that makes the creative work matter. So let me talk about the next 6 months for a minute and zoom out a little bit. So Q3 and Q4 together are the final 6 months of 2026. So we got 6 months left. And in those 6 months, when you actually treat them as a structured unit with a clear goal and a real plan, that's a lot of time. And in that time, you can accomplish a tremendous amount of things. You can launch a major project. You can build a meaningful audience. You can establish a revenue stream that didn't exist in June. You can also develop habits and systems that will carry you into 2027 with momentum instead of regret. Now, there's another way of looking at the next 6 months that most people don't want to hear, because those 6 months can also evaporate. They can go by in a blur of reactive weeks full of good intentions and almost, but not quite. And then you can arrive at December 31st with a lot of effort behind you and nothing to show for it. And the deciding factor is whether you treat these next 6 months as a deliberate, intentional, structured path, or a series of random connected days that you'll figure out as you go. Maybe. So if you don't achieve your Q3 or Q4 goals, it's not because of your market, your niche, or your timing. I mean, really, it really isn't because of your market, your niche, or your timing. But it is because you didn't commit. You didn't commit to treating these next 6 months as a deliberate, focused, intentional, and structured pursuit. So here's what I want you to do before July 1st. And if you're watching this on or after July 1st, do these things now if you haven't already. This is your short homework list, and none of it is complicated. So the first thing you need to do, set your Q3 revenue goal, a specific dollar amount. Write it down. Share it with someone who will hold you accountable and ask you about it every month for the next 3 months. Okay, second, set your July revenue goal. Break this third quarter into 3 months. What does July need to look like for the quarter to succeed? And then share that with that same someone who's going to hold you accountable. All right, third, identify your daily prospecting action. Just one concrete, specific thing you'll do every single day in July to put your work in front of the people who need it most. And then fourth, set your primary quest for Q3. The one project that deserves your time, focus, resources, and attention. That, if finished and amplified, moves your work and your income forward in a stratospheric way. Remember, Not 3 projects, just 1. And 5th, commit to tracking. If you have a tracking document, update it. If you don't have one, then your first task of this 3rd quarter starts with building one. Because you can't evaluate what you don't measure, and you can't improve what you can't see clearly. That's the list. 5 things. Do them before Wednesday. Q3 is coming whether you're prepared or not. And the calendar doesn't care about your good intentions. It doesn't wait for you to feel ready. July 1st arrives on Wednesday. And the question is simply whether you meet it with a plan or without one. I hope you meet it with a plan. I have a plan. And you know what? Next week, we're going to go deeper into something that I mentioned earlier. The psychological reasons most creatives stay in planning mode even when they know they should be executing. Because understanding that is the key to actually breaking the pattern. Not just for July, not just for Q3 2026, but for good. So make sure you're subscribed on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you're listening right now, so you don't miss that one. This is Focus, Finish, Grow. I'm Bill Walker. Thanks for being here. Now go set your goals. I'll see you next week.